What is up, Doug? What up, Doug? This is Nmap Life Host Discovery. Today we're looking for a room that teaches you how to use Nmap to discover live hosts using ARP scan, ICP scan, TCP/UDP pin scan. Nmap is a tool that can help us handle repetitive tasks and answer the following question: which system is up? What servers are running on these server or the systems? This is first series of the room. First series in the Nmap series is 4 room total for the network security module dedicated just for Nmap. The room explained the steps that Nmap carries out to discover the system that are online before port scanning. This stage is crucial because it's trying to port scan offline system will only waste time and create unnecessary noise in the network. And a few things we already talked about, mentioned there's ARP scan, ICMP scan, TCP/UDP pin scan. Another few tools we're going to introduce are ARP scan and mass scan. We can read that, and let's move on to the task 2. Let's review a couple of terms before we move on to the next task. A network segment is a group of computers that connected using a shared medium. For instance, the medium can be Ethernet switch or a Wi-Fi access point. In an IP network, a subnetwork is usually equivalent of one or more network segments connected together and configured to use the same router. The network segment refers to a physical connection, while a subnetwork refers to a logical connection. In the following network diagram, we have 4 network segments or subnetworks. Generally speaking, your system will be connected to one of these network segments / subnetworks. A subnetwork, or simply a subnet, has its own IP address range and is connected to a more extensive network via a router. There might be a firewall enforcing security policy, depends on each network. You can see the 4. And the figure shows 2 types of subnet. One with the /16, which can be expressed in a subnet mask of 255.255.0.0. So network B is one of them. And subnet /24, with the subnet mask can be expressed as 255.255.255.0, which is one network A or network C. With the /16, you can have up to 65,000 hosts, and with 24, you can only have around 250. If you'd like to know more about these, you can look into the Intro to LAN room for more subnetting. As part of the active reconnaissance, we want to discover more information about a group of hosts or about a subnet. If you're connected to the same subnet, you would expect your scanner to rely on ARP, the address resolution protocol, queries to discover live hosts. An ARP query aims to get the hardware address, known as MAC address, so that communication over the link layer becomes possible. However, we need use this to infer that the host is online. If you're on network A, you can use ARP only to discover the device within the subnet. Suppose you're connected to a subnet different from a subnet of the target system. In that case, all packets generated by your scanner will be routed via the default gateway to reach the system on another subnet. However, the ARP queries won't be routed, hence cannot cross the subnet router. ARP is a link layer protocol, and ARP packets are bounded by their subnet. Okay, view website. Let's view website. Let's see, my tab box is still online. Okay, still have a little bit. Okay. Answer the questions below. Send a packet with the following: computer 1, ARP request to computer 6. Okay, computer 1, computer 6. Okay, based on what we know from ARP request, let's predict what could happen. From computer 1, send it to the broadcast ID. We want to ask for computer 6. How many devices can see the ARP request? How many devices? So knowing the characteristic of ARP, you will only send within a single subnet. So we can see this 4, this 3, this 4 is one subnet. This 4 is another subnet. The reason being is to travel through the router, the default gateway, or what do you call it, default gateway. So I will have to predict that computer 1 will send it to switch 1, which will lead to computer 2, computer 3, and router. So these are the 4 that will see the ARP request. Let's try that. And the computer 6 received the ARP request. Well, it's in a whole different network, so and ARP only works within the same. So it will say no. It will say the packet. You can see it stops at a router. It doesn't go forward. Let's try the second scenario. From computer 4 to computer 4, same ARP request, same data. That would be, but the difference this time is computer 4 is in the same subnet as computer 6. So how many devices can see the ARP request? So computer 4 will send it to switch 2, which will broadcast to router, computer 5, and computer 6. So again, there will be 4 in total device that will see this request. However, the difference is this time computer 6 saw the request, hence he can actually reply. And if you send it, and you see in the network log is, hey, computer 4, I am computer 6. Let's move on to task 3, enumerating targets. Enumeration is a process that is used to find and collect information about ports, operating systems, and service available on a target machine. So we can specify the target we want to scan. Generally speaking, you can provide a list, which is you can just say IP1, IP2, IP3, or a range from this to this, which will scan from that, or a subnet, which show here, and you can also provide a list with this. If you want to check the list of hosts on that Nmap will scan, you can use the Nmap-SL target. This will give you a detailed list of hosts that Nmap will scan without scanning them. However, Nmap will attempt to reverse DNS resolution on all the targets to obtain their names. Names might reveal various information about the to the pen tester. If you want Nmap to don't want it, just add it -n. Launch the attack box. Open terminal. Okay, let's see. Okay. So let's see. What is the first IP address Nmap will scan if you provide this as your target? So we will do Nmap SL because you want to list the host that Nmap will scan. Then we go 10.10.12.13/29, and we can see here, and this is our first one. This again, okay, paste, submit. How many address will Nmap scan if you provide the following range? Okay, following range. Let's copy this. We use the same, but with a different IP. Let's just wait. Let's see what it gives us. And wow. Oh no, wow, this is so much. And it's done. It took them 12 seconds. So we can see there's 6400. So we will say 6400. Now move on to task 4. Let's exit this view. Discovering live hosts. Let's revisit the TCP IP layers from the figure next. We will leverage the protocols to discover the live host, and then starting from the bottom to top, we can see the ARP from the link layer, ICMP from the network layer, TCP and UDP from the transport layer. Before we discuss each use in the detail, we would briefly review those 4 protocols. ARP has one purpose, sending a frame to the broadcast address on a network segment and asks for a computer with a specific IP address to respond by providing its MAC address. ICMP has many types. An example is the ICMP echo request and the echo reply, type A and type 0. If you want to pin the system using the same subnet, an ARP request will come first before the ICMP protocol. Although TCP and UDP are transport layers, for network scanning purpose, a scanner can send a specially crafted packet to common TCP or UDP port to check whether the target will respond. This method is efficient, especially when an ICMP echo is blocked. If I have closed the view site again. Okay. Question from computer 1 to computer 3, packet type pin request. Okay, let's set that up. Pin request. What type of packet that computer 1 sent before the pin? Well, computer 1 to computer 3. Computer 1 here to computer 3. So we remember the three things. So it works on the bottom to the top. So if it's within the same subnet, we're in the link layer, which will use the ARP. So this will be ARP request. Okay, this is what we want to ask. We want to ask computer 3 for this thing, for its MAC address. What type of packet does computer 1 receive? So what does computer 3 respond? A ARP response, which you can see. Reply, request, response. And if we send it, you can see ARP response. How many computer responded to the pin request? How many computer well, they can receive it, but really you're asking for computer 3 and computer 3 only, so there will only be one responding to the request. Now let's move on to computer 2 to computer 5, and we're still using the pin request. What's the name of the first device that responds to the first ARP request? So we're looking at 2, going to a whole different network. So this time we're looking for ICMP, like a ICMP echo request. So the first one we go through is we need to go to the router, so he knows where to go next. So we would say router will be the first one to respond because you will send to this subnet, and this subnet will tell them there's no computer 5, which will send it to the router. The router will say, okay, I don't have computer 5 in the network you're in, but I'll ask somewhere else. So he will reply first. What's the name of the device that will respond to the second ARP request? So router will send to this subnet to ask for computer 5. So computer 5 will respond. Send another pin request. Did it require a new ARP request? No, because we don't need it. We use the ICMP here. Task 5. Hey, let's go. Nmap host discovery using ARP. So we know a few things about ARP now. So here it is essential to avoid wasting our time to do port scanning and offline hosts if the IP address is not in use. There's a few ways to discover live hosts, online hosts. A few things we can do is when a privileged user tries to scan a target on a local network, Nmap uses the ARP request within the same network. And a privileged user is root or somebody that can use sudo. When a privileged user is trying to scan outside of local network, they use the ICMP echo request. This is when you see the TCP ACK, TCP SYN, and ICMP timestamp request. Depends on the situation. And there's an unprivileged user trying to scan a target outside the network. You will use the TCP three-way handshake by sending the SYN packet to port 80 and 443. By default, Nmap uses a pin scan to find live hosts and then proceed to scan live hosts only. If you want to use Nmap to discover online hosts without port scanning the live system, you can use through Nmap SN target. ARP scan is possible only if you're on the same subnet as the target system. On the Ethernet 802.3 and Wi-Fi 802.11, you need to know the MAC address for any system before you can communicate. The MAC address is necessary for the link layer header. The header contains a source MAC address and a destination MAC address, among other fields. To get MAC address, the OS sends an ARP query. A host that replies to the ARP query is up, and it knows the target only works if it's on the same subnet. On the same network, you should be expecting Nmap to use ARP compared to ICMP. If you want the Nmap to only perform ARP scan, you can use the Nmap-PR-SN targets. PR means you want to only use ARP scan, and SN, I believe, is when you want to use Nmap to discover SN to discover live system without port scanning. So here's an example: no port scanning, ARPs only. And we will see, as shown before, there's a request, there's a reply, it's live. And inside our Wireshark, we can see the source MAC address, the protocol that's used, what are they trying to ask for, reply back to the IP address. Another one we were talking about was the ARP scan shown in task 1. This is very similar to the SN feature, the PR in Nmap. And all you gotta do is just use ARP scan -L for local net. And then you can also use interface, depends on what you're using. And this is the full one you can do. And this will query for all valid IP on whatever interface you want them to be on. If it's not installed already, you can use the apt install ARP scan. And this is the code in play. We can see it shows the three live hosts. And in the Wireshark, it is very similar. It is still coming from a source IP, going to a destination of broadcast, have the ARP protocol, and still asking for who is this. If I close the simulator, I'm gonna go task 2 again. Let's go to task 2, visit site. Okay. Task 5. Let's go down, answer the questions below. From computer 1 to computer 1, type ARP request, try all the possible 8 devices. How many devices were you able to discover using ARP request? How many devices? Okay. 1 to 1 ARP request. Well, let's do some elimination. Let's see based on what we know, what do we predict? So ARP request only works in the same subnet. So computer 1, computer 2, switch 1, computer 3, tell router. This is one subnet, this is the other subnet. So we will not see this one. Blah, blah. How many devices you're able to discover? Well, this computer 1 is connected to switch 1, so you already know this MAC address because you're literally connected to it. How many would you discover? I would say you will discover 2, discover 3. You will know about the router. So my guess would be 3. But let's try. Computer 2. If we send a packet, can we get computer 2? Yes, we can computer 2. Computer 3. Can we get computer 3? Yes, we can. Can we get router? Can we get router? Yes, we can get router. But can we get computer 5? Computer 4 even? No, we cannot. Why? Different subnet. So we have discovered 3. Beautiful. Okay, task 6. Nmap host discovery using ICMP. First, let's exit. We can pin every IP address on a target network to see who would respond to our pin, known as ICMP type 8 echo request, with the pin reply type 0. Simple, isn't it? Although this is the most straightforward approach, it's not always reliable. Many firewalls block ICMP echo. New version of MS Windows are configured with the host firewall that blocks ICMP echo requests by default. Remember that an ARP query will precede the ICMP request if your target is on the same subnet. To use the ICMP echo request to discover live host, you're going to use the function option PE. Also, to remember to add SN if you don't want to do port scan. This is a request, this is a reply, host is alive. This is what the command will look like, the result. And notice if it's in the same subnet, it will return with a MAC address because it's using ARP. But if you're scanning outside a different subnet, you'll be looking for a you'll be looking for IP address. You will see the protocol current ICMP. It is an echo request from the IP source to the destination. In case of the IP echo request is blocked, you can consider the ICMP timestamp to tell the system is online. Again, it's simple. All of these are just if there's a request, there's a reply, it means you're alive. Yeah, and then you will use the option PP. Then you will still see they will still send out all valid IP address. And here the ICMP protocol again, and it will be a timestamp request now. And lastly, we have an address mask query, the type 17, to check whether it gets an address mask reply. Use the option PM, also shown in the figure. If there's a request, there's a reply, host is alive. And this is the whole command. In Wireshark, you can see the info will just be address mask request. Okay, what is the option required to tell Nmap to use ICMP timestamp? Timestamp. Well, that would be the PP request from what we read. Address mask, which saw this one, the PM. And lastly, would just be the PE. Next task. Host discovery using TCP and UDP. TCP sends pin. It sends the synchronized flag sent to TCP port 80 by default. And wait for a respond. The open port should rely on send ACK. Close port will send a RST reset. We only check whether we get a response to get the hosts up. So if it completes a three-way handshake, it sends a SYN, it sends a SYN ACK, sends an ACK back. The port is open. You can use the option PS. You can add the ports behind it, such as PS21 will only target port 21. PS21-25 would target the ports within that range of 21 to 25. And if you use a comma in between, you can scan all three ports. Privileged user root and sudos. Sudoers can send TCP SYN packets and don't need to complete the three-way handshake, even the port is open. So as shown here, so remember be a privileged user because he doesn't complete do not need to complete the three-way handshake. No connection is more stealthier. This is what happens when you run it. And in the Wireshark, you're gonna see a SYN request by the TCP protocol. ACK pin. This sends a packet with the ACK flag set. You must be running Nmap as a privileged user to be able to accomplish this. If you try as an unprivileged user, Nmap will attempt three-way handshake. By default, port 80 is used. Similar to TCP SYN, PA is the option you want to use, followed by the port number, range, list, or a combination of them shown here. Port number. If no port is specified, port 80 will be used by default. This one, the TCP packet sent with the ACK flag will get a TCP packet back to the RST flag. The target responds to the RST flag because TCP packet with the ACK flag is not part of any ongoing connection. So it jumped the line, so it would just say no. But we will know if you send an RST, it's open. or it could be closed. Remember, you had to use sudo as a privileged user. If we peek at network traffic, TCP protocol, we will only see ACK requests and no synth compared to this one. UDP pin, alright. So UDP is a connectless protocol. What it does is it just sends to the port and do not expect any reply. So if you send a packet to the target and nothing responds, that means the UDP port is open. But if you send and you get an error reply, which is the ICMP destination unreachable, the type 3, code 3, then it's closed. It's similar similar to TCP SYN pin and ACK pin, you use the option PU. And so you can see in the following. Then when you see in the Wireshark, you use the protocol UDP, and you use the uncommon UDP port to trigger the ICMP destination unreachable. And the second tool we talked about in the intro was the mass scan. This is very similar approach, discover an available system, and this can finish its network scan quickly. It is quite aggressive with the rate of packet it generates. The syntax is quite similar. -p can be followed by a port number, list, or range. Consider the following examples. It does not install on the app box. However, it can be installed using app install mass scan. Okay. Which TCP pin does not require a privileged account? That would be TCP SYN pin. Which TCP pin scan requires a privileged account? TCP ACK pin. What option do you need to add to Nmap to run TCP scan on the telnet port? Well, telnet port is running on port 23, I believe. So, let's see. This is task 7. Okay, yeah. So we want to SYN pin. SYN pin is up here using PS. So we would say PS 23 for telnet port. Oh, we're coming close. Used reverse DNS lookup. The MS default behavior is to use reverse DNS online host. Because the hostnet can reveal a lot, this can be a really useful step. However, if you don't want to send such requests, you can use -n to skip this step. By default, Nmap will look up online hosts. However, you can use the option -r to create a DNS server even for offline hosts. If you want to use a specific DNS server, you can add the DNS server and the server option. We want to use Nmap to issue a DNS lookup for all possible hosts on a subnet. Get it? Okay, so we definitely don't want a -n because we want to skip, but we want to use -r, the capital R. And summary. You have learned how ART, ICMP, TCP, and UDP can detect live hosts by completing this room. Any response from a host is an indication that it's online. Below is a quick summary of the command line option for Nmap that we have discovered today. ART, ICMP, the 3 types of ICMP, 2 types of TCP, 1 UDP. And SN, right? If you have any questions, this concludes the room, the Nmap live host discovery. Congrats. So next up, we will do the basic port scan, and we'll see you next time.